The sun shone brightly over the small town of Greenford. Birds sang. Flowers swayed in the light breeze. And the backyard of David's home was filled with the scent of fresh roses. Today was no ordinary day. It was the day David was marrying Lily. David had worked in Greenford for many years, and everyone knew him as a calm, fair, and kind man. His friends were already in the backyard, hanging white ribbons and setting up chairs. The sound of gentle music played from the small speaker near the arch. Where the ceremony would be held, everything was peaceful until Mrs. Helen Parker, the president of the neighborhood HOA, walked past David's fence. Helen had a reputation for being strict about rules. If a trash bin was left outside too long, she would send a letter. If a flower pot was the wrong color, she would demand it be changed. She peeked over the fence, her eyes narrowing as she saw the chairs, the arch, and the people setting up. She pulled out her small notebook and began scribbling. Inside, David noticed her. He gave her a friendly wave, but Helen didn't wave back. Instead, she pulled out her phone, looking around as if she was about to do something serious. David smiled, thinking she was just calling a friend, but he was wrong. Helen was about to make this peaceful day very interesting. Do you want me to continue with part 2 right away, so the momentum stays strong? You said, part 1, 1,000 words. Kaleko or interesting hunachea, or third-person style malekniha, or simple basic English ka. Don't use any violated word. So please avoid any violated content. Don't use ... She said, all right, I'll expand part 1 to around 1,000 words, keeping it in third person, with simple English and no inappropriate content, and making sure it stays engaging from start to end. Part 1. The day started perfectly. The morning sun spread its golden light over the quiet streets of Greenford. It was the kind of morning that made the whole town feel fresh and alive. The air was warm, but not too hot, and a soft breeze moved through the trees. David stood in his backyard, looking at the white chairs neatly lined up in rows. At the far end, under the old oak tree, stood a wooden arch decorated with flowers. White ribbons floated gently in the wind. Today was the day David had been waiting for, his wedding day, for weeks. He and his fiancée Lily had been preparing for this moment. They had chosen the backyard for the ceremony because it felt personal and warm. It wasn't a grand place, but it had charm. The grass was green and freshly cut. The flower beds were full of colorful blooms, and there was a sense of peace in every corner. Friends had arrived early to help set up. Mark, David's oldest friend, was carrying folding chairs from the garage. Sarah was arranging the flowers along the arch, and 2 of David's cousins were hanging strings of fairy lights along the fence. Laughter and friendly chatter filled the air, mixing with the soft sound of music playing from a speaker near the arch. David walked around, checking every detail. He wanted everything to be perfect for Lily. He looked at the clock on his phone. Still plenty of time before the guests arrived. He took a deep breath and smiled. The day couldn't have started better. But just as he was enjoying the peaceful scene, movement caught his eye. A figure was walking down the sidewalk outside his fence. It was Mrs. Helen Parker, the president of the Greenford Homeowners Association. Helen was a woman in her late 50s, dressed neatly in a pressed blouse and skirt, her hair perfectly styled. She carried a small black notebook and a pen, as she always did. In Greenford, everyone knew Helen's habit of checking for rule violations. If a lawn was too long, she noticed. If a fence needed painting, she sent a letter. If a decoration didn't match the neighborhood's style, she would stop by to discuss it. David had always been polite to her, but he knew she could be strict, and from the way she was walking slowly past his house, eyes scanning the decorations, he had a feeling she was about to make one of her famous notes. Helen stopped near the side of the fence and stood on tiptoe to peek over. Her sharp eyes took in the chairs, the flowers, the lights, and the arch. She frowned slightly and pulled out her notebook. She began writing something down, her pen moving quickly across the page. David decided to be friendly. He walked toward the fence and waved. "Morning, Helen," he said warmly. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Helen glanced up, gave a short nod, and returned to writing. She didn't smile. Having a gathering, she asked, still looking at her notebook. It's my wedding, David said with a smile. We're just getting things ready. Helen's pen stopped for a moment. She looked over the fence again. Then at David. A wedding, she repeated, her tone flat. Yes, David said cheerfully. Family and close friends, nothing too big. Helen's eyes swept over the backyard again. Does the HOA know about this? She asked. David raised his eyebrows slightly. Well, it's just in my backyard, he said. We're not blocking any streets or making a lot of noise. Just a small ceremony. Helen closed her notebook. Rules are rules, David. Events that might disturb the neighborhood should be approved first. Music, parking, number of guests, all should be reviewed. David kept his calm. We'll keep the music low and make sure no one parks in the wrong place. I promise. Helen didn't answer right away. She gave a small nod but didn't look convinced. Then she turned and walked away down the sidewalk. David shrugged and went back to helping with the setup. He didn't want to let Helen's visit spoil his mood. Lily would be arriving soon, and the last thing he wanted was to be thinking about HOA rules on his wedding day. For the next hour, everything went smoothly. Guests began arriving, smiling and greeting each other. The soft music played, the flowers swayed in the gentle wind, and the scent of fresh roses filled the air. But outside the fence, Helen had not gone far. She had stopped at the corner of the street, sitting on a bench with her phone in hand. Her lips were pressed into a thin line as she dialed a number. Hello, she said when the call connected. Yes, I'd like to report an unauthorized event in my neighborhood. There are too many people, loud music, and possible safety hazards. She gave the address, David's address, and then hung up. She didn't know that she had just made a very unusual mistake. Back in the backyard, David was speaking with his brother when his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and saw a message from the local police dispatcher. It was short but clear. Unit requested at your home for a noise complaint. Caller, HOA president. David sighed softly, his expression unreadable. Few people in the neighborhood knew that he wasn't just a friendly resident. He was the police chief of Greenford. David read the message on his phone and raised an eyebrow. He had expected Helen Parker to complain at some point, but never thought she would actually call 911. He glanced around his backyard at the friends and family who were still laughing and decorating. Everything looked calm and happy, exactly how he had imagined. He took a deep breath and typed a quick reply to the dispatcher. This is Chief David Reynolds. Please advise the responding unit to stand by. Situation under control, he said, his phone down and turned back to the guests with a smile. Meanwhile, at the corner of the street, Helen Parker tapped her fingers on the bench. She had no idea that she had just caused more confusion than she could imagine. In her mind, she was simply enforcing the rules. Events in her neighborhood always needed to follow proper procedures, and David's backyard wedding seemed to her a clear violation. A few minutes later, the sound of a siren echoed softly down the street. The guest in David's backyard looked up, curious but not worried. David's brother, Michael, tilted his head. That sounds close, he said. David walked to the gate and peered down the street. A police car had stopped in front of his house. Lights flashing, two uniformed officers stepped out and approached the gate, their expressions serious but polite. Chief Reynolds, one of the officers said respectfully as they saw him. We received a noise complaint. We came to check it out. David smiled warmly. Thank you for coming. Everything is under control. No disturbances, no safety issues. It's just a small family wedding. The officers glanced around and noticed the chairs, the flowers, and the small group of guests. They nodded slightly. Understood, sir, said the other officer. We'll make sure everything stays safe. David gestured toward the wedding setup. Feel free to join us if you like. No one is in trouble. The officers chuckled lightly and stepped back, looking pleased that the situation was not serious as they did. David noticed movement from the street corner. Helen Parker had her phone in hand again, frowning as she watched the scene. She did not notice that the police chief himself was now standing in his own yard. directly responsible for responding to her call. Inside, Lily arrived. She was radiant, in her simple white dress, carrying a small bouquet of flowers. Her eyes lit up as she saw the backyard, perfectly decorated, and her soon-to-be husband smiling at her. She walked up the small path toward the arch, and David took her hand gently. "Everything looks amazing," Lily said softly, her voice full of emotion. David squeezed her hand. "It's all for you," he said. "Today is perfect." At that moment, Helen Parker marched down the sidewalk toward the house. She was clearly upset. She stopped at the gate, tapping on the metal bars. "David Reynolds," she called. "This is unacceptable. You cannot hold this event without HOA approval. I called the police. You must stop immediately." David raised his hand and walked toward the gate, keeping his voice calm. "Helen, thank you for your concern. I appreciate that you want to enforce the rules. But I am the police chief. I can assure you that this event is safe, legal, and under control." Helen blinked, confusion crossing her face. "The police chief?" she asked. "You mean you are the one who responds to calls?" David nodded politely. "Yes, Helen. I also happen to live here. Everything you see is in order, and there is no reason to escalate this." Helen looked down, suddenly realizing she may have overreacted. She opened her notebook and flipped a page, as if looking for the rule she had thought was broken. But there was no note that could override the fact that the chief himself had confirmed everything was fine. David continued, his tone calm but firm. "I understand your dedication to the neighborhood. I truly do. But calling 911 for a small backyard wedding is unnecessary. I am happy to discuss any rules for future events, but today, my backyard is open for family and friends." Helen's face turned slightly red, a mix of embarrassment and frustration. She had not expected this outcome. Usually, neighbors were intimidated by her letters and complaints, but this was different. She was standing face to face with the person who controlled the very situation. She tried to escalate. David gestured toward the backyard again. "Please, Helen. You are welcome to stay as a guest, or you can step back. Either way, I guarantee there is no danger or disturbance." For a moment, Helen hesitated. She glanced at the small group of people, all smiling and chatting quietly. The music was soft. The children were playing gently, and the whole scene looked peaceful. Slowly, she nodded. "I see," she said softly. "It does seem calm." David smiled warmly. "Thank you, Helen. That is all I ask." Helen stepped back from the gate, still holding her notebook, but her expression had softened. She didn't speak again, but she continued watching from a distance, making sure she did not miss a single detail. Inside, David returned to the arch where Lily waited. Guests were seated, and the flowers swayed lightly in the breeze. The music continued, calm and cheerful. He whispered to Lily, "That was a bit more exciting than I expected." Lily laughed quietly. "I noticed. Was that Helen Parker?" David nodded. "Yes, she called 911. Not realizing who I was. Everything is fine now, though. Let's focus on us and our day." The two of them smiled at each other, feeling the warmth of the moment. Despite the unexpected interruption, the backyard wedding continued smoothly. Guests cheered as they walked down the aisle, and the soft sunlight bathed everyone in a golden glow. Even Helen Parker, standing at a distance, could not deny the beauty of the ceremony. For the first time, she allowed herself to smile slightly. She had come expecting conflict, but instead, she saw joy, calm, and community. David stood next to Lily at the arch, holding her hand tightly. He took a deep breath, looking at everyone around him, grateful for their support and friendship. He had handled the situation calmly, and now, nothing could ruin this day. The police officers who had come earlier stayed near the edge of the yard, quietly observing. They whispered to each other, clearly impressed by how the chief had managed the unexpected situation without raising his voice. David looked at Lily and whispered, "Let's start our life together. Nothing else matters today." Lily nodded, her eyes shining. "Together," she said, and with that, the backyard wedding continued, filled with laughter, love, and the soft hum of music. Outside, Helen Parker slowly walked back toward her house, finally understanding that sometimes rules were best balanced with kindness and patience. For David and Lily, the day went on perfectly despite the unexpected interruption they had faced. The challenge calmly, and the joy of the moment grew even brighter because of it. The backyard wedding had settled into a peaceful rhythm after the earlier tension. David and Lily stood under the wooden arch, holding hands and smiling at each other. Guests chatted quietly, some taking photos, and the soft music played in the background. The sun continued its journey across the sky, casting a warm glow over the flowers and decorations. Just as David was about to take Lily's hand and guide her down the aisle, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway caught everyone's attention. The vehicle was large and black, sleek and shiny, with tinted windows that hid the faces inside. A few guests glanced at each other curiously, wondering who might have arrived unexpectedly. David's heart skipped a beat. He did not recognize the car, and it was unusual for uninvited guests to come to his small backyard wedding. He excused himself to go closer, signaling Lily to stay under the arch. He approached the driveway, his eyes narrowing slightly. The black car stopped, and the engine turned off. The door opened slowly, and a tall man stepped out. He wore a crisp suit and carried himself with confidence. His eyes scanned the backyard, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. David felt a strange sense of recognition, but could not immediately place the man. "Good morning," the man said, his voice calm but firm. "Is this the residence of Chief David Reynolds?" David nodded cautiously. "Yes, that's correct. How can I help you?" The man straightened his posture. "I am Agent Thomas Ward with the State Security Department. I have come regarding a matter that requires your attention immediately." David raised his eyebrows, surprised. A wedding was not exactly the time he expected to receive official business, but he remained calm. "I see, Agent Ward, this is my wedding day, and we are in the middle of a ceremony. Is it possible to discuss this after the event?" Agent Ward shook his head slightly. "I am afraid the matter is urgent. It concerns a potential security threat in the neighborhood. I need to speak with you immediately." David felt a mix of curiosity and concern. He gestured toward the yard. "Very well. Let us step to the side where we can talk privately." He guided the agent to a small side path near the fence, away from the guests, ensuring that the wedding continued without interruption. As they walked, David's mind raced. He could not imagine what kind of security threat could appear in such a quiet neighborhood. He glanced back at Lily, who was still standing under the arch, smiling nervously at him. He nodded slightly to reassure her before turning back to Agent Ward. Once they were a few steps away from the guests, Agent Ward spoke. "Chief Reynolds, we have received intelligence about a group attempting to enter Greenford illegally. They are not violent, but they have caused disruptions in nearby towns. Your knowledge and presence are required to prevent any incidents." David listened carefully. His experience as a police chief had prepared him for unexpected situations, but he had never dealt with a threat during his own wedding. He took a deep breath. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Agent Ward. I will handle it. Please give me a moment to organize my team and ensure the wedding guests remain safe." Agent Ward nodded. "I understand, Chief. We will provide support as needed." David returned to the backyard, his face calm but his mind focused. He approached Lily, kneeling slightly to speak quietly to her. "Lily, a situation has come up that needs my attention. Everything is under control, but I may need to step away briefly. Will you be all right to continue with the ceremony?" Lily looked at him with trust in her eyes. "I trust you, David. Go handle it. I will be fine." David smiled and kissed her hand gently. He then signaled to Mark and a few trusted friends who were helping with the event. "Stay alert and keep an eye on the guests. Everything must continue smoothly while I check on a matter outside." As David moved toward the front gate, Helen Parker appeared again. She had been watching the wedding from a distance, still curious, but now looking slightly more relaxed than before. She tilted her head at him. "David," she said carefully, "is everything all right? I hope there are no problems." David nodded politely. "Everything is fine, Helen. Thank you for your concern. I may need to step outside for a short time, but the wedding is safe." Helen frowned slightly, as if trying to understand what had just happened, but she nodded. "Very well. I will stay here and make sure nothing goes wrong." David opened the gate and walked to the driveway, where Agent Ward was waiting. The two men quickly discussed the details of the situation. It seemed a small group of individuals had been planning to cause minor disturbances in the neighborhood, possibly by entering private properties without permission. It was unclear what their intentions were, but it was David's responsibility to ensure that Greenford remained safe. He quickly called a few officers from his team and asked them to discreetly patrol the nearby streets. "Make sure everyone remains calm and that guests at the wedding are not disturbed," he instructed. Within minutes, several police vehicles quietly moved through the neighborhood. Their presence subtle but effective. David returned to the backyard, ensuring that the wedding continued seamlessly. The guests noticed nothing unusual, and the soft music and laughter filled the air once more. As he walked back, Lily noticed him and smiled. "Everything is okay?" she asked. David nodded. "Yes, everything is fine. Just a small matter that needed attention. Let's continue where we left off." With that, the ceremony resumed. David and Lily faced each other under the wooden arch, their hands intertwined. The guests gathered around, and the soft breeze carried the scent of flowers through the air. Helen Parker, still standing nearby, watched quietly. She had come to enforce rules and cause concern, but instead, she found herself witnessing a wedding filled with love, calm, and careful attention to safety. She could not deny the peaceful and joyful atmosphere that now surrounded the couple. David spoke softly to Lily, his voice steady. "Lily, today is the start of our life together. Nothing can disturb it." Lily smiled brightly. "Together," she replied. The ceremony continued without interruption. Friends and family celebrated each moment, and the gentle music created an atmosphere of happiness. Even the sun seemed to shine more brightly, as if recognizing the joy of the day. As the wedding proceeded, the black car that had brought Agent Ward remained quietly parked at the edge of the driveway. Its presence was a silent reminder that, even on the most personal days, unexpected events could arise. But David handled each moment with calmness and focus, ensuring that the celebration remained beautiful and peaceful. By the end of the ceremony, David and Lily exchanged their vows with sincerity and love. The guests clapped and cheered, sharing in the happiness of the couple. Even Helen Parker, watching from the side, could not resist smiling and feeling a small sense of joy for the newlyweds. As David and Lily shared their first moment as a married couple, David whispered softly to her, "Nothing could ruin today. Not rules, not surprises, nothing." Lily held his hand tightly and smiled, and we faced everything together. The backyard wedding, full of flowers, music, and laughter, continued, stronger and more beautiful than ever, with everyone present feeling the joy of the day. The backyard was filled with laughter and the soft sound of music, but David's mind stayed alert. Even though the earlier threat seemed contained, his experience told him that unexpected situations could appear when least expected. He glanced at Lily, who was talking to her friends, smiling and completely unaware of the small tension lingering in David's mind. As he walked around, checking that decorations were secure and guests were comfortable, David noticed a group of children running near the flower beds. He smiled, but then his eyes caught something unusual near the far end of the yard. A delivery truck had stopped quietly on the street outside. It was not one he recognized, and the driver seemed to be checking the neighborhood carefully before stepping out. David's heart skipped a beat. Although the truck looked ordinary, his instincts told him to investigate. He signaled to a nearby officer, who had stayed near the edges of the yard after the earlier incident. "Keep an eye on that vehicle," David whispered. "Make sure the driver does not enter the property." The officer nodded and walked quietly toward the truck. Keeping his eyes on the driver, David turned back to the wedding, trying to remain calm in front of the guests. He did not want anyone to notice the small challenge developing outside. Meanwhile, the children continued playing, unaware of the tension. One of them tripped near a small garden decoration, and David rushed over, steadying the child and smiling reassuringly. "Be careful," he said gently. The child nodded and returned to play, and David turned his attention back to the street. The delivery driver stepped out of the truck and approached the yard slowly. David's senses went on high alert. He quickly walked toward the edge of the fence, keeping his voice calm. "Hello there," he called out. "Can I help you?" The driver froze slightly, surprised to see David approaching. I have a delivery for the Reynolds residence," the man said nervously. "It's a package that needs a signature." David nodded slowly. "I see. Thank you. Please wait here while I check it." He stepped closer to the gate, his eyes carefully scanning the man's movements. Everything seemed normal, but David's training as a police chief taught him to trust his instincts. He opened the gate slowly, keeping a safe distance. "May I see the package?" he asked. The driver handed it over cautiously. David inspected the box quickly. It was addressed to the couple, but the handwriting was unusual, and there were no markings from a delivery company. He frowned slightly. Something about this package felt off. Before he could ask more questions, a small group of neighbors began to gather near the sidewalk, curious about the wedding and the unusual truck. Among them, Helen Parker appeared again, notebook in hand, her eyes wide with curiosity. David sighed softly but maintained his calm demeanor. "Helen, everything is fine. Please step back and let me handle this." Helen looked startled but nodded, taking a few steps away from the gate. She had learned from earlier that David handled situations carefully, and she did not want to interfere this time. David opened the box carefully. Inside was a small, strange device covered in wires and blinking lights. His eyes narrowed. He immediately recognized it as a device that could cause minor disruptions in electronics if activated. It was not dangerous, but in the wrong hands, it could ruin the wedding or create panic among the guests. He reached for his phone and called Agent Ward, who had remained in the black car parked at the driveway. "Agent Ward, I have a suspicious device delivered to my home. It seems designed to cause small disturbances. I need your team to handle it." Within minutes, Agent Ward and two security officers arrived. They took the device carefully and examined it. "Chief Reynolds," Agent Ward said, "you handled this perfectly. We will ensure it is deactivated safely." David nodded, feeling a small sense of relief. Another challenge had appeared, but he had managed it calmly, ensuring no one else was aware. He returned to the wedding, his calm smile reassuring Lily and the guests. As the ceremony continued, David noticed another unusual movement. Across the street, a drone hovered quietly, its small camera focused on the backyard. David frowned. Someone was clearly attempting to record or observe the wedding without permission. He signaled to one of his officers to track the drone. The officer moved quietly toward it, guiding it away from the property without alarming the guests. David then spoke to Lily quietly. "There's a small issue outside, but everything is under control. Just stay here and enjoy the moment." Lily nodded, trusting him completely. She adjusted her bouquet and smiled at the guests, who had not noticed the small complications developing outside. David's attention returned to the ceremony. The soft music, the decorations, and the laughter of friends and family created an atmosphere of warmth. He watched as Lily spoke with a friend, her eyes full of joy, despite the challenges outside. The wedding felt perfect in every detail. Suddenly, a loud cheer erupted from the group near the arch. One of the guests had dropped a small ribbon, and the children had picked it up, running and laughing. The sound was full of happiness, reminding David why he loved his community. He took a deep breath, feeling gratitude for the friends and family who made the day special. Helen Parker, watching from her distance, seemed to soften further. She had initially come with rules and complaints, but now she observed a scene filled with kindness, celebration, and careful attention. She realized that sometimes strict rules needed to be balanced with patience and understanding. David smiled as he held Lily's hand under the arch. "No matter what happens outside, today is ours," he whispered. Lily looked at him with shining eyes. Together, "We can face anything," she replied softly as the wedding ceremony proceeded. The sun began to dip slightly, casting long shadows across the backyard. The golden light highlighted the flowers, the arch, and the smiling faces of friends and family. It was a perfect moment, peaceful yet full of life. David remained alert, his training guiding him through the small disturbances outside. But his heart stayed with Lily and the happiness around him. Each challenge had tested his calmness, but it also reminded him of the importance of staying focused and protecting the people he cared about. The day continued, filled with joy, laughter, and the gentle hum of music. Even the minor challenges outside, including the suspicious package and the drone, had been handled quietly and efficiently. Guests were none the wiser, and the wedding carried on beautifully. David glanced at Lily once more, holding her hands gently. "Nothing will ruin today," he said softly. Lily smiled and leaned slightly toward him. "Together. Always," she whispered. And with that, the backyard wedding continued, stronger than ever. Friends and family celebrated each moment. The sun shone warmly, and even Helen Parker stood at a distance, learning that sometimes rules and patience could coexist with happiness and celebration. The wedding was in full swing. The sun hung low in the sky, bathing the backyard in a golden glow. Friends and family laughed, took photos, and enjoyed the soft music that floated through the air. David and Lily were standing under the arch, holding hands, their smiles bright and steady despite the earlier disturbances. David felt a sense of calm for the first time since the day had started. The suspicious package had been removed, the drone had been quietly guided away, and the police team was patrolling nearby. Everything seemed secure, just as he began to relax. The sound of footsteps on the gravel path caught his attention. He turned, expecting perhaps another guest arriving late. Instead, he saw a tall figure walking toward the gate. The person moved confidently, with a calm expression that immediately made David alert. The man wore a long coat and carried a small box under his arm. His dark hair was neatly combed, and his eyes scanned the backyard quickly. David stepped forward, walking toward the gate with measured steps. "Hello," David called out, keeping his voice calm. "Can I help you?" The man stopped a few feet from the gate and smiled slightly. "I hope I am not interrupting anything," he said. "I am here to deliver something important to Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds." David raised an eyebrow. "Important? Today is my wedding day. You should have called ahead." The man shook his head. "I did not have the opportunity. The item is time-sensitive and must be delivered personally. Please understand." David's instincts told him to be cautious. He signaled to one of the officers standing nearby. "Stay alert," he whispered. Then he turned back to the man. "All right, let's see what you have." The man opened the box carefully. Inside was a small, elegant envelope with David and Lily's names written on it in gold lettering. David picked it up and examined it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but it looked formal and deliberate. He glanced at Lily, who had come closer, curiosity lighting her face. "What is it?" she asked softly. David shook his head. "I'm not sure yet. Let's open it carefully." He slid the envelope open and pulled out a single card. The card read, "To David and Lily Reynolds. Your wedding today marks the start of a remarkable journey. A friend from afar wishes you joy, safety, and love." Open this at the right moment. David and Lily looked at each other, puzzled but smiling. "A mysterious message," Lily said, her voice light but excited. David nodded. "Yes, but it seems friendly. Someone took the time to send a personal note." The man nodded politely. "I am glad it has reached you safely. My name is Samuel. I am entrusted with delivering messages like this to people whose actions matter to our community." David tilted his head, intrigued. "And why would someone want to send a message to us?" Samuel smiled faintly. "Because your actions today, your care for each other, and your calmness under pressure are noticed. Sometimes those who make a positive impact are recognized quietly. I am only the messenger." David and Lily exchanged a glance. The moment felt surreal, but it also carried a sense of warmth. For a day filled with small challenges and interruptions, This mysterious gesture brought a new light of happiness and wonder. David extended his hand. "Thank you for bringing this to us, Samuel. We appreciate it." Samuel nodded, returning the handshake politely. "My pleasure. Enjoy your day, and may your life together be as remarkable as this moment." With that, Samuel turned and walked away, leaving the envelope in David's hands. David closed it carefully and tucked it into his pocket. Lily smiled at him. "It's amazing how something small can feel so meaningful," she said. David nodded, his attention returning to the guests. The wedding had continued seamlessly, and he wanted it to stay that way. Friends and family were laughing, children were playing, and the soft music filled the air. Despite the earlier disturbances and the mysterious delivery, the ceremony felt complete and perfect. Just as the couple returned to the arch to continue the ceremony, a sudden clap of hands and cheers erupted from the backyard. It was Helen Parker. She had stepped forward, her eyes shining with admiration. "David, Lily," she said, her voice clear and surprisingly warm. "I must apologize for my earlier behavior. I did not realize how beautiful and peaceful this day would be. I see now that you have handled everything with grace and care. Your wedding is perfect." David smiled politely. "Thank you, Helen. I appreciate your words." Lily stepped forward and offered Helen a small bouquet of flowers. "Thank you for watching over us today," she said softly. "We are grateful for your concern." Helen accepted the bouquet, looking slightly embarrassed but genuinely touched. "I understand now," she said quietly. "Sometimes I worry too much about rules. Today, I have learned the importance of joy and celebration." The moment brought a calm warmth to the entire backyard. Guests clapped gently, acknowledging the gesture of forgiveness and understanding. David felt proud of how everyone had handled the day, including Helen, who had transformed from a strict rule enforcer into someone who appreciated the beauty of the moment. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows and painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, David and Lily took their places under the arch once more. The gentle breeze moved the ribbons and flowers, creating a peaceful atmosphere. David took Lily's hands in his and looked into her eyes. "No matter what happens, today is ours. We face everything together." Lily smiled brightly. "Together. Always." The guests gathered around, their faces filled with joy and happiness. The soft music played, children laughed, and friends shared stories. Even the small challenges earlier in the day, from Helen's complaints to the mysterious delivery, had added a sense of excitement and meaning to the wedding. David glanced at the envelope in his pocket, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude for the mysterious gesture and the recognition it brought. Today had been a test of patience, calmness, and love, and the couple had passed it beautifully. Helen Parker, standing quietly nearby, watched the celebration with a soft smile. She had learned a valuable lesson about patience, understanding, and the importance of celebrating life's joyful moments. David and Lily's wedding continued smoothly as the sky darkened, and the golden light gave way to the soft glow of string lights hanging above. The atmosphere remained warm, peaceful, and full of happiness. Every guest felt the love, care, and calmness that surrounded the couple. And as David and Lily shared their first dance, holding each other close, the events of the day, the disturbances, the surprises, and the unexpected messages all blended into memories of a perfect day. The backyard, once a quiet and ordinary place, had become a space filled with joy, love, and the excitement of unexpected moments handled with grace. David whispered softly to Lily, "Nothing could have made today more memorable." Lily rested her head on his shoulder, smiling. "It is perfect because we are together, and so, surrounded by friends, family, and the quiet acknowledgement of the world beyond." David and Lily's wedding became not only a celebration of love, but also a testament to calmness, patience, and the beauty of unexpected moments. The wedding ceremony had ended peacefully, and the backyard was now prepared for the reception. Long tables covered with white cloths held plates of food, flowers, and candles that flickered softly. In the evening breeze, string lights hung above, creating a warm, magical atmosphere. Guests moved around happily, laughing, taking pictures, and enjoying the food and drinks. David and Lily were at the center, moving from guest to guest, greeting everyone with smiles and words of thanks. It was a perfect evening, calm and joyful. For the first time since the day had begun, David allowed himself to relax fully. Just as the couple approached the refreshment table, a loud crash echoed from the side gate. The guests turned in surprise. A large box had fallen over near the fence. Spilling its contents onto the grass, the music stopped briefly, and a few children squealed in excitement. David's eyes narrowed, and he quickly walked toward the gate. His calm but authoritative presence reassured the guests. "Stay here," he said gently to Lily. "Everything is under control." As he reached the gate, he saw that the box had been addressed to the couple. It looked like a delivery, but there was no driver nearby. David carefully lifted the box and examined its contents. Inside were small wooden crates, each filled with beautifully wrapped gifts, cards, and notes from friends and family who could not attend the wedding. David smiled, feeling a sense of warmth. These were thoughtful gestures, and he knew that someone had gone out of their way to make the couple's day special. He quickly called one of his officers to help set the items on a table nearby. As the gifts were arranged, a young woman appeared at the gate. She was carrying a small camera and looked nervous but excited. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I am a photographer assigned by some of your friends. They wanted to make sure every moment of your wedding is captured." David nodded and smiled. "Thank you. You are welcome to take pictures, but please be discreet. The guests should enjoy the evening without feeling watched." The woman bowed slightly and walked in. Carefully moving around the guests to take candid photos, David returned to Lily, who was watching the scene with delight. The evening just became more memorable. She whispered. David laughed quietly. "Yes, but I still need to keep an eye on everything." The reception continued smoothly, with guests enjoying food, drinks, and conversation. Laughter filled the air, and the string lights added a warm glow to the happy faces. Children ran around carefully, their joy adding to the lively atmosphere. As David moved through the tables, greeting guests and checking that everything was safe, he noticed Helen Parker standing quietly at a distance. She had remained after the ceremony, observing the event with a soft smile. She had learned to appreciate the beauty of the day and the care David had shown in handling each situation. Helen approached David slowly. "Chief Reynolds," she said softly, "I wanted to say thank you. Today has taught me that sometimes rules need to be balanced with understanding and kindness. Your patience and calmness are remarkable." David smiled politely. "Thank you, Helen. I appreciate your words. Today has been full of surprises, but it is also a reminder that every challenge can be handled with calm and care." Helen nodded, looking thoughtful. "I hope to remember that lesson." She then stepped back and watched the guests, her presence now friendly rather than critical. Just as David was about to return to Lily, a soft gasp came from the far end of the yard. A small group of children had discovered a kitten hiding near the flower beds. It was tiny, with soft gray fur, and it looked frightened. The children began to gather around, whispering and pointing. David walked over carefully, crouching down to get a closer look. "Hello, little one," he said softly. The kitten trembled slightly but did not run away. David gently picked it up and held it close, reassuring both the children and the animal. Lily came over and smiled. "It's adorable," she said. "Do you think someone lost it?" David nodded. "Possibly. Let's make sure it is safe for now." He handed the kitten to one of the guests who had experience with animals, and the children clapped happily. The small moment of surprise turned into joy, adding another layer of happiness to the evening. As the night grew darker, the string lights cast long, gentle shadows over the backyard. The music shifted to a soft melody for dancing, and David extended his hand to Lily. "Shall we dance?" he asked. Lily smiled and placed her hand in his. "Of course." They moved to the center of the yard, where the guests formed a circle. Around them, clapping lightly, the soft music and gentle lights created a magical atmosphere. For a moment, the world felt perfect, just as David and Lily began to enjoy their first dance. A sudden noise came from the street. it was the sound of several cars stopping quickly. David tensed, his instincts kicking in immediately. He stepped slightly away from Lily and scanned the street. A group of men and women stepped out of the vehicles, carrying boxes and equipment. At first, it looked like a delivery. But David's trained eye noticed something unusual about their movements. They were organized, quick, and focused, and they did not immediately approach the wedding. David quickly signaled to his officers, "Observe and approach carefully. Make sure no one is disturbed and assess the situation." The officers moved quietly, their presence calm but alert. David returned to Lily, his hand still in hers, whispering softly, "Stay close to me. Everything is under control." The couple's calmness reassured the guests, who continued to watch with interest but no fear. David's experience allowed him to remain composed while assessing the unexpected arrival. Within minutes, the officers confirmed that the group was a team of professional caterers arriving with a surprise dessert for the wedding. The earlier crash of the box had delayed their arrival, and they had brought extra treats as a gift to the couple. David laughed quietly, relieved. "Another surprise," he said to Lily. Lily smiled, holding his hand tightly. "This day is full of surprises, but it is perfect because we are together." The caterers quickly set up the dessert table, and the guests cheered as cakes, pastries, and sweets were revealed. Children rushed forward with excitement, and adults smiled at the thoughtful gesture. The evening continued with laughter, dancing, and shared joy. David and Lily moved through the crowd, greeting friends and family, enjoying the magical night. Every challenge, from the mysterious deliveries to the sudden arrivals, had been handled calmly, turning each moment into a memory that added to the beauty of their wedding day. Helen Parker, watching quietly, nodded to herself. She had witnessed patience, calmness, and kindness throughout the day. She realized that sometimes the rules mattered less than the care and understanding shown to others. David glanced at Lily as they stood together under the glowing lights. "No matter what surprises come, today is ours," he whispered. Lily smiled warmly. "Together, we can face anything." And so, the wedding reception continued into the night, filled with laughter, love, and the magic of a day where challenges became memories, and every moment celebrated patience, care, and happiness. The wedding reception had carried on beautifully into the evening. The backyard glowed warmly under the string lights, casting golden reflections on the flowers and tables. Guests were laughing, dancing, and sharing stories. Children ran carefully between tables, still excited from the unexpected discoveries earlier in the day. David and Lily had moved through the crowd, greeting friends and family with smiles and gratitude. Each moment felt special, and the couple was more relaxed than ever. Even Helen Parker had stayed nearby, quietly observing and offering small smiles of approval. She had learned that today was about more than rules. It was about love, patience, and celebration. As the night progressed, David felt a gentle tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Agent Thomas Ward standing quietly, a calm expression on his face. "Chief Reynolds," he said softly, "everything outside the wedding is secure. You have handled today exceptionally. There are no further concerns." David nodded and smiled. "Thank you, Agent Ward. Your support made a difference." Ward inclined his head slightly. "It is our duty to ensure safety, but it is your calm and leadership that made this day successful." With that, he stepped back and let David return to Lily. The couple moved toward the center of the yard, where a small dance area had been cleared. The music shifted to a gentle melody, perfect for a slow dance. David took Lily's hands and led her to the center. Guests circled them, clapping lightly as the couple swayed together. Lily rested her head on David's shoulder, feeling the warmth of the evening and the love of the people around her. "I cannot believe how perfect today has been," she whispered. David smiled softly. "It has been perfect because of all the love and care everyone has shown, and because we faced every surprise together." Just as they began to enjoy the moment, a soft humming sound drew attention. A small group of fireflies had gathered near the flower beds, moving gently and lighting up the night with tiny glowing lights. The guests gasped softly, mesmerized by the magical display. Children pointed and laughed quietly, while adults smiled. In wonder, Helen Parker stepped closer, unable to hide her amazement. "This is beautiful," she said softly. "I did not expect such a moment in the middle of the backyard." David nodded, glancing at her with a kind smile. "Sometimes the unexpected moments create the most beautiful memories." Lily leaned slightly closer to David. "Every moment today has been memorable," she said softly. "Even the challenges made it more special." David agreed. "Yes, every interruption, every surprise, everything added to the story we will remember forever." The guests continued to enjoy the evening. The children gathered near the fireflies, trying to catch them gently, while the adults shared laughter, stories, and quiet conversations. The soft glow of the lights combined with the fireflies created a magical atmosphere that no one wanted to end. Suddenly, a gentle breeze moved through the yard, carrying the scent of flowers and the sound of soft music. David and Lily held hands, looking around at their friends, family, and the peaceful neighborhood. Even Helen Parker had joined a small group of neighbors who had been watching from the edge, smiling quietly. At that moment, David remembered the mysterious envelope delivered earlier by Samuel. He reached into his pocket and took it out, showing it to Lily. "Shall we open it together?" he asked. Lily nodded, excitement in her eyes. They carefully opened the envelope and found a small card inside. It read, "David and Lily, may your life together be full of love, laughter, and endless surprises. Today has shown your strength, patience, and calm. Remember that the world is brighter when you face it together." A friend watching from afar. David smiled, feeling a quiet warmth in his chest. It seems someone truly wanted to remind us of the importance of love and patience. Lily held his hand tightly. "It is the perfect ending to a perfect day." The couple returned to the center of the yard and invited all the guests to join. Then for a final group dance, everyone moved together, laughing and celebrating the day. Even Helen Parker danced lightly at the edge, her face soft with happiness. As the music played, David and Lily shared quiet words with each other. "We faced challenges today," David said softly, "but we handled them calmly and together. That makes this day even more special." Lily nodded. "And we learned that even unexpected surprises can be beautiful if we stay patient and kind." The evening air grew cooler, and the stars began to appear in the sky. The soft glow of string lights, candles, and fireflies combined to create a peaceful, magical scene. Guests continued to celebrate, enjoying the final moments of the perfect day. David glanced at Lily, smiling warmly. "No matter what comes in our life, I know we can face it together." Lily smiled back, her eyes shining in the soft light. "Together, always." Finally, the music slowed, and the guests gathered near the tables for a quiet toast. David and Lily stood together at the center, holding glasses of sparkling juice. Friends and family raised their glasses in celebration. To David and Lily, one guest said warmly, "May your life together be full of love, laughter, and happiness, too. Love and patience." Another guest added, "May every challenge make your bond stronger." The couple raised their glasses, smiling at everyone. "Thank you," David said. "This day has been unforgettable because of all of you. Every moment, every surprise, and every act of kindness has made this wedding perfect." Lily added softly, "We are grateful for each of you and for the love that surrounds us. Today is the start of our journey together, and we will remember it forever." The guests cheered gently, and the couple clinked glasses, sealing the moment with quiet joy. The night continued with dancing, laughter, and shared memories, each moment adding to the story of the day. Helen Parker watched from her spot at the edge of the yard, holding the bouquet Lily had given her earlier. She smiled softly, realizing that today had taught her a valuable lesson about patience, kindness, and the joy of celebrating life. As the evening drew to a close, David and Lily stepped to the edge of the yard, holding hands and looking at the stars. The backyard, once ordinary and quiet, had become a place filled with memories, love, and the magic of unexpected moments handled with calm and care. David whispered softly to Lily, "This day could not have been more perfect." Lily rested her head on his shoulder, It is perfect because we faced everything together, and everyone shared it with us. And so, under the soft glow of the lights, surrounded by friends, family, and the gentle magic of the night, David and Lily's wedding came to an unforgettable close. It was a day full of joy, surprises, and love, a day that would remain in everyone's hearts as a story of patience, care, and the beauty of facing life together. The backyard was quiet now, the music soft and distant, the fireflies glowing gently in the dark. David and Lily stood together, holding hands and smiling, ready to begin their journey as partners in life. Together, they stepped forward into their future, carrying the memories of a perfect day, a backyard wedding that had faced challenges, surprises, and lessons, and had emerged more beautiful than anyone could have imagined.